Hey guys, I hope you all are doing okay. I know this was a really scary weekend in Lebanon, and so I do hope and pray that you're all right and feeling okay, feeling grounded and safe. So today I wanted to, wrap up some of this discussion of the theme of history in the novel. You've supposedly submitted your writing assessment. A few pieces of feedback from the ones I've seen. Guys, I hate to tell you this, but ChatGPT does not sound like a real person. Many of you were submitting AI generated responses. It's just a homework grade, so I wasn't too strict. However, a lot of you were copying each other, and I am a little bit more strict on that. But AI writing does not sound like human writing. So do not rely on ChatGPT to do your writing, especially for my class, because it just sounds like a bunch of nonsense. It's just a bunch of big words. It doesn't mean anything. However, those of you who thoughtfully wrote about things because you read the novel and you reflected on the question I asked, shared some really wonderful stuff, and I appreciate that. I want to jump off of one of those themes, one of those ideas that I think is really important in the novel that was pointed out in some of your writing. And this is within the theme of history, another theme, which is the theme of propaganda. Have you heard of propaganda? Well, propaganda is when a group, usually a group in power, like a government or a political party, tries to reshape information in a way to brainwash their audience. So it's like imagine you're the media, but instead of looking at events and telling what happens, you retell the events to make it say what you want it to say. So propaganda comes in a lot of different forms, but it's just a way of retelling, of telling history or even current events in a way that is meant to, sort of bias your audience towards your way of thinking. A famous example of propaganda that I think is quite hilarious is that during World War II, Disney made a Donald Duck cartoon in which Donald Duck was wearing red, white, and blue and had a nightmare that he was born in Germany and had to work for the Nazis. Now, this is a way of using a children's cartoon to shape the minds of kids, to brainwash them in a certain way. Well, governments and political parties all over the world, including in Lebanon, use propaganda. They, instead of telling you what actually happened, they tell you their version of what happened to brainwash you. And this is why it's important to ask the question, where is my information coming from? So I'll give Nadim a shout out. Nadim, in his writing reflection, asked the question, have any of us ever doubted whether or not the history we know is true? And it's a great question. We know certain tellings of history, but how do we know that the history we've been taught is actually what happened? Perhaps the history we've been taught has been made up, has been shaped in a certain way to influence us. And so when that happens, we call this propaganda. Now, propaganda appears in Halion and the Name Giver. If you remember this scene where Halion breaks into the library and he's reading, well, he's reading these histories of the Silver Kings. And the way they tell history, they sound phenomenal. They sound amazing. And in fact, they even take some of their most horrible policies, like the laws that created the slaves, and explain why they're doing it as an act of kindness. Why it's even worse for people. Why if everyone's not given a role, things will be chaotic. And if slaves are allowed to learn, then they'll be unhappy. And so they create this kind of bizarre thinking where by making slaves, they're doing people a favor. They're doing a kind thing. Well, that's obviously not true. But they've told their story and their history in a way to pretend that that's true or to try to brainwash their audience that that's true. Now, that process is called propaganda. And if you lived in a place like North Korea, you would be subjected to propaganda every day. So in North Korea, the only information available is the information approved by the government. You can't get it on the internet freely. It's all censored and controlled. And North Koreans actually believe that their president, Kim Jong-il, was awarded the award of the most handsome man in the world. And if you've seen him, he looks kind of like a potato. So the idea of propaganda is very real. And it raises this theme of, just as Halion's searching for the truth of himself, he's searching for the truth about the world. And in the same way, we can relate to Halion. We can say, look, I don't want to see the world through the lens that the governments or the political parties around me are telling me to see the world. I want to see the world as it really is. I want to seek for truth. And that's what the story is encouraging us to do. It's encouraging us to look beyond the obvious and to seek a deeper insight into reality. So that's the theme of propaganda. And it's a really important one in our world today. Okay, so that's a little bit of our class discussion for today. for today, I would love for you guys to finish reading the novel. On Wednesday, I'll be uploading a video about the novel and beginning to discuss it in its entirety. In the meantime, in your course packet portfolio, here's what I need you to be working on. I need you to be filling in on page, let me just check. I think it's page. So we did the character profiles in the course packet. And now on page 24 and 25, you will see some elements, literary elements that we discussed at the beginning of the year, and some possible symbols. And I would like you to look over those and begin filling those in, and as a preparation to analyze the story once we've finished on Wednesday. All right. So as you're finishing the story, I want you to fill in the literary elements on page 24 and the symbols on page 25. Thanks, guys.